Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm Bob Walters. This is Locked Up Sports NCAA Tournament Central. We got everything going on. A wild day yesterday. Another 8 games today. 8 teams have punched their ticket to the Sweet 16. Another 8 will advance today. And at 10 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock, hopefully not 1 o'clock like last night, 9, 10 o'clock tonight, we will have our 16 teams into the Sweet 16. And yesterday, late night at the NCAA tournament in Pittsburgh location, they had 2 overtime games. You had Oakland that lost a double overtime game. Everybody's Cinderella this tournament after beating Kentucky. And then you had Creighton, who survived against Oregon. Oregon had 2 guys that basically scored all their points in the second half. And Creighton was able to outlast them. They beat them up in the second overtime, winning by about 12 or 15. But that game was close. Oregon had the ball, had a last shot in the final seconds of regulation, missed the shot to send it to overtime. Then Creighton had a chance in the first overtime to win it. They couldn't do it. Second overtime, Creighton came out and just hit a bunch of threes, and they beat them. And sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes the team, they survived and advanced, like you say in this tournament. They survived and advanced. So if they do, listen, that might be their test. Everybody that wins this tournament is going to have a test. They're going to have to survive and advance at least once. You need to get lucky. You need to get over your test, and you need to hit your threes. And Creighton got a severe test from Oregon last night. Oregon, of course, the Pac-12 tournament champions, the last Pac-12 tournament that they will ever be, and then won their first game over a good South Carolina team and gave Creighton all they can handle yesterday. But the big story coming out of yesterday, of course, was Oakland. Jack Golke, he didn't have the game he had against Kentucky. Did you really expect it? They were heavy underdogs against NC State, who's a Cinderella themselves, but they don't have they're not the mid-major Cinderella that everybody looks for. NC State did not have a good season. They had to win 5 games in 5 days just to get to the tournament. Then they beat a good Texas Tech team, and they end up here. There's 6 straight wins. Golke, of course, listen, he didn't hit his threes. He couldn't hit his threes down the stretch. Oakland has nobody to blame, though. They had a chance. They had the ball with about 10 seconds left. And what happened? They picked the worst time to have their worst possession of the tournament. They had a chance to win it. They get the final shot. They threw the ball away. They gave it to NC State, who missed a half quarter not by much. It was kind of like a Butler situation. It was off glass and then off the rimmed out. And then in overtime, they couldn't get their shots to fall. NC State got up by about 4 or 5, and then they just stretched it out, and the game was over. But give Oakland all the credit in the world. That coach, 40 years he's been at that school. Jack Golke, listen, he's on a list right here ahead of somebody you may have heard of before, named Steph Curry. He hit 16 threes in his first 2 career NCAA games. Curry's on the list in 4th place now. He hit 13. So any list you're on that involves shooting the basketball that you are ahead of Steph Curry, you did something right. And Oakland, give them credit. They played great against Kentucky. They will relive that for the rest of their lives. The coach has been there 40 years. He won his first NCAA tournament game. So that's what it means to some of these mid-majors. You got a couple of them, not mid-majors, but you got a couple teams, possible Cinderellas today. You got Grand Canyon, you got James Madison, and you got Yale. One of those 3 will win their game today. You could take it to the bank. One of those 3 will win their game and get to the Sweet 16, and that will be your Cinderella. To me, you got to make it to the second weekend. You got to make it to the Sweet 16 to officially be a Cinderella. You got to win 2 games. We'll see if any of these 3 teams can do it today. Oakland couldn't do it yesterday. Duquesne got blown out by Illinois. But the story besides that, because that's always the story in the beginning of the first couple days of the tournament, the first weekend. It's always the little nothing school you never heard of. And like I said, it would have been nice. It would have been nice to get Oakland that full week of exposure where they're talked about. You get to know all their stories. Now, we got to know all those stories because CBS and TNT and TBS, they saturated the day with Oakland stories. They had the coach on. They had the Golke kid on. They did packages about them, highlight packages and their story. Imagine what it would have been if we had a whole week of that. You would have really, got ramped up with Oakland. But we'll see if we get one of them today. But as far as the actual basketball goes and who looks best, it's Gonzaga. Gonzaga looks, they ran Kansas out of the gym in the second half. They had a 13-0 run. They had a 14-0 run, all in the second half. They were down 3 at halftime to Kansas, and the Jayhawks came out. They couldn't buy a bucket. Everything was dropping for Gonzaga, and Gonzaga is now in their 9th straight Sweet 16. Give Mark Few all the credit in the world. He's a future Hall of Fame. I can't believe he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. He's done something that you can't do. It's unfathomable. He took Gonzaga, who was a mid-major. Gonzaga was like Oakland 20 years ago. And he has now turned them into a full-fledged blue blood in college basketball. They're a better program right now than Kentucky. Kentucky, 1-4 in their last 5 NCAA tournament games, and Gonzaga's gone to 9 straight now Sweet 16s. And they flew under the radar this year because they didn't dominate in their conference. You had St. Mary's there. St. Mary's won the conference tournament, got the automatic bid. Gonzaga had to get the at-large bid, and they have done everything with it. St. Mary's is out of this tournament already. Gonzaga blew out McNeese State, who everybody was picking McNeese State 12-5, and then they blew the doors off Kansas yesterday. And Bill Self in the post-game press conference came out, and I didn't like it. I mean, he came out and he said, well, I've already been thinking about next year for a month now. Well, nobody wants to hear that. Your players who just busted your ass out on the court, whether they played well in the second half or not, they don't want to hear it. Kansas Jayhawk fans do not want to hear that. Now, he's not in trouble or anything. He just won a championship 2 years ago, but still, don't get in there. When you just got run out of the gym like that, 37-6 in the second half, don't come up to that podium and sit there and say, well, I wasn't thinking about this year anyway. Nobody wants to hear it. It's not right to do to Gonzaga. It's not right to do to your kids. It's not right to do to the fans. And Bill Self just kind of just passed the buck and said, well, our best player was, your best player was out. We get it. We all know. And he's going to the NBA, and I think he's frustrated because he thinks he could have played, is what I think. That's what it seems like to me. Is he thinks the kid could have played. It's the way he sounded when he made the announcement that he wasn't going to play in the tournament just a couple days ago. It's how he sounded last night, but nobody wants to hear it, Bill Self. Okay, you're Kansas. Everybody else there is on scholarship too. Now, Gonzaga is a good team, but you were better. You were a 4 seed. They were a 5 seed. Gonzaga flew under the radar. Everybody had Gonzaga getting beat by McNeese State. Nobody had you really Stanford, there were a couple people that picked Stanford, but nobody really had you getting beat by Stanford. And then you come in there, you lay an egg, you get run out of the gym in the second half. They had a 3-point lead at halftime, so it's not like they were completely overwhelmed the entire game. They just didn't show up in the second half. So you got NC State is going to play Marquette or Colorado. The Big East has had a decent representation so far. Okay, I know it's only a couple games. You have Creighton, who survived. They advanced to the Sweet 16. You have UConn, the number 1 overall seed. They will play today against Northwestern. I imagine they will win that game. I think UConn's going to run into their trouble in the Sweet 16 if San Diego State can get past Yale today. And they should get past Yale. But San Diego State struggled a bit against Alabama Birmingham in the first game. Now they come in against a hot Yale team. And if Yale hits their threes, that's the great equalizer, okay? San Diego State plays like they did on Thursday. Yale hits a bunch of threes. Absolutely, Yale can beat them. Absolutely. Do I see it happening? I don't. And I think San Diego State is going to give UConn all they can handle in the Sweet 16. That's going to be an interesting game. On the other side of the bracket, the other Big East team, you got Creighton, played yesterday. We just went over. They did not play great. They survived against a tough Oregon team. Oregon had 2 guys on their team, basically. 2 guys scored every point, I think, in the second half. Oregon didn't go to the line. They didn't shoot a free throw until the last minute of regulation. They had 2 guys score all their points, and they didn't shoot a free throw until the last minute of regulation, and they somehow took it to double overtime. So Creighton did not play well. Now, they get Tennessee in the Sweet 16, who also didn't play well. Tennessee did not. Their best player was just non-existent. He was invisible yesterday. They were able to just get past Texas, who hung with them. They beat Texas by 4 points. And now you got 2 teams who kind of survived and advanced, and 2 teams who got over their test, playing each other in the Sweet 16 in Creighton and Tennessee next Thursday night. And that's another interesting game. Now, if Purdue wins today, and you expect them to beat Utah State, but if Purdue wins today, you're going to have Purdue and Gonzaga And I think Purdue is in trouble because Gonzaga just looks unbeatable. They look like the best team in the tournament, hands down. It's not even close. Now, I know they were red hot shooting yesterday, but even when they're not, they are a good basketball team. They're kind of gelling at the right time, and that's what you need. If your team's got to come together, you got to get high, you got to get lucky, you got to overcome your test, you got to survive in advance, and that's what this tournament is. That's how you win this thing. Get hot at the right time. Look at UConn a couple years ago. NC State is another team. I could, if you want a long shot to win this tournament, I'd go with NC State. They're, I think, 120-1. Well, they were yesterday before the game. 120-1 to win the championship. They are red hot. They got a big man inside. They could shoot the ball. They survived against Oakland. That would be my long shot to pick. Arizona yesterday, they cruised over Dayton. Dayton, I think, was overrated coming into this tournament. Everybody loved Dayton. Oh, Dayton this, Dayton that. Listen, Arizona's a better team. They beat them. It was the standalone game at 12 o'clock. It was the first game yesterday. Arizona went into the halftime with a 15-point lead. They struggled a bit in the second half. They let Dayton hang around, and Dayton ended up, they ended up losing by like 10 points. But Dayton hung around. Give them credit. But I did not think Dayton was a 7 seed. I thought maybe they should have been a little bit lower. So today you got UConn and Northwestern in Brooklyn. You got Duke and James Madison in Brooklyn. Watch out for James Madison. Okay, I think Duke's vulnerable. I thought they would get beat by Vermont. They didn't. Vermont came out. They didn't have a good shooting night. And if you're a team like Vermont, if you're a mid-major, you got to be shooting the lights out to beat these teams. Because bottom line is you don't have the talent. Oakland is not as talented as NC State, even though NC State is a Cinderella. But people want to see the mid-majors. Everybody's heard of NC State. People never heard of Oakland. They were shocked when they found out it was in Michigan and not California. James Madison can be that Cinderella, and I give him a good shot today against Duke. I do. I don't think Duke is a very good team this year. They were overrated. They were overseeded, I think, and we'll see how they do. San Diego State and Yale. Yale's your other one, and also you have Alabama and Grand Canyon, and I could see Grand Canyon winning that. Don't be surprised if two of these three end up being into the Sweet 16 when you talk about Yale, Grand Canyon, and James Madison. Two of the three could very easily, at least one of them's going. You could take that to the bank. One of them is going to find themselves later tonight in the Sweet 16. But the best team overall so far, from what I've seen, has been Gonzaga, and it's not even close. North Carolina, it looks good. They beat Michigan State. Michigan State's always a tough out, and Tom Izzo teams are always a tough out. He's won 20 first-round matchups. I don't know if he's ever lost the first round. I think he has, but he's won 20 first-round games. He always finds himself in the second round, always finds himself in the Sweet 16. Carolina was able to beat him. They just got more talent. Illinois blew out Duquesne. So, listen, there's a whole lot going on yesterday, a whole lot today. 8 teams advanced to the Sweet 16 yesterday. Another 8 will advance today. And tonight around 10 o'clock, the body of the tournament will be over. And then you get down to business. On Thursday night, you get down to business. Now it becomes, I hate to say it becomes serious, but now it becomes serious. You got the big names. You got Tennessee, Gonzaga, North Carolina, Arizona. You're going to have Houston and Purdue. Okay, so on Thursday, today it's fun. Yesterday was a lot of fun. Today's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to have some hopefully some upsets. And you will. There's always upsets. It's been a wild tournament so far. It's been a wild tournament. NC State is the only double-digit seed so far into the Sweet 16. We'll see if we can get 1 or 2 more today in Yale, in Grand Canyon, or in James Madison, who's the 12th seed. So a lot going on. Don't forget, we got baseball coming up this week. The Mets Tuesday they start, I believe. No, Thursday. Thursday, the Mets start. We have Bob Usler right here on Locked Up Sports on opening day. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a great interview. We love Bob. He loves coming on. He did the Knicks game yesterday. The Knicks and Rangers both with big wins yesterday. But today it's all about the tournament, and that's what this show's about. So enjoy the games, everybody. They get started in just a little while. We'll talk to you either tonight, as long as they don't end up 1 in the morning again, or tomorrow morning. And we will have 16 teams left standing. So enjoy the basketball day, everybody. Hopefully we get some upsets. Hopefully it's as good a day as we had yesterday. I'm Bob Walters. We'll talk to you later, everybody. See ya.